History teaches us a very specific, almost counterintuitive lesson about empires. We tend to believe that great civilizations are destroyed by the barbarian at the gate, by the massive invasion force swarming over the walls. We look for the external enemy. But if you look closely at the timelines of history, you find that empires are rarely murdered. They are destroyed by a poison spreading from within, by the cracks in the foundation that go ignored until the entire structure comes crashing down. For the last 3 years, the eyes of the entire world have been glued to a very specific stretch of land on Russia's western border. We have watched Vladimir Putin obsess over NATO. We have counted the tanks, the missiles, and the trenches in the Donbass. We have analyzed every speech, every threat, and every troop movement directed at Ukraine and the West. But while the Tsar was staring west, obsessing over the ghost of the Cold War, he ignored an earthquake rumbling beneath his feet in the south and the east. The Russian world, the Ruski Mir that Putin talks about constantly, is dying. And rising from its ashes is a power that Moscow thought it had buried a century ago. It is called the Turk world. From the frozen steppes of Kazakhstan to the oil fields of Tatarstan, from the mountains of Chechnya to the icy lands of Yakutia, the people Moscow has oppressed for centuries are waking up. We are witnessing the collision of a fading empire with a rising demographic tsunami. We are talking about a 200 million strong force banging on Russia's southern door, just as a silent Chinese invasion tightens its grip on the east. To understand why this map is about to break, we have to understand the nature of the Russian state itself. For centuries, Russia has held a dark title: the prison of nations. It is a vast, sprawling empire that holds hundreds of distinct ethnic groups captive under the iron rule of Moscow. To keep a prison running, you need guards. You need a massive security apparatus to keep the Tatars, the Bashkirs, the Buryats, and the Chechens in line. But look at the barracks today. The guards are gone, and the prisoners. They have realized the door is unlocked. This isn't just a metaphor. Charter 97 reports a historic development that almost nobody in the mainstream news is talking about. Ukraine's military intelligence has officially facilitated a union of indigenous peoples. We are seeing Tatars, Bashkirs, Buryats, and Chechens fighting against Moscow under their own flags. This is not just a foreign legion, it is a political bomb. It is the beginning of the active decolonization of Russia. The most powerful weapon Ukraine handed these indigenous peoples wasn't a Javelin missile or a Leopard tank. It was a voice. Soldiers from the Siberian Battalion and the Turan Battalion are recording videos from the front lines. They aren't speaking Russian. They are speaking Tatar. They are speaking Bashkir. They are speaking Yakut. They are beaming a message back home, bypassing Kremlin censorship through Telegram and TikTok. The message is simple and devastating. This is a colonial war. Moscow is using us as cannon fodder. Wake up. This digital insurgency is waking up a national consciousness that has been asleep for 100 years. Nowhere is this threat more acute for the Kremlin than in Chechnya. Putin likes to project the image that his warlord, Ramzan Kadyrov, has the region under strict control, but reports suggest a growing insurgency. Chechen fighters in Ukraine aren't just fighting for Kiev. You have Kadyrov's TikTok army. On the other, battle-hardened veterans fighting for are preparing to liberate Grozny. It is a Chechen civil war waiting to happen. On one side, independence. If Kadyrov falls, the entire North Caucasus explodes. And with the Russian army busy in Ukraine, there is no one left to stop a third Chechen war. But the collapse of influence isn't just happening inside Russia's borders. It is happening in the countries that used to be Moscow's most loyal subjects. The geopolitical map has fundamentally changed. The Lansing Institute calls it a new strategic axis. The Organization of Turkic States, the OTS, is no longer just a cultural club where leaders drink tea and talk about folklore. It is mutating into a military and economic bloc that directly challenges Russia's dominance in its own backyard. For 200 years, Central Asia was considered Moscow's property. Now it is looking to Ankara. The Times of Central Asia describes this as Turkey's Turk Gambit. It is a zero-sum game. Where Russia is weak, Turkey is filling the vacuum. While Russia is busy destroying cities in Ukraine, Turkey is building them in Central Asia. They are building schools, roads, and, most critically, armies. This shift is powered by hard power. Forbes details drone diplomacy. Kyrgyzstan used Turkish drones to win its border conflicts. Azerbaijan used them to reclaim Karabakh. Now, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan are buying them. These countries are replacing Soviet-era Russian weapons with modern Turkish tech. But here is the strategic nightmare for Putin. Turkish tech is interoperable with NATO standards, not Russian ones. Strategically, Central Asia is integrating into a NATO-adjacent defense architecture, leaving Russia isolated in the cold. But weapons are just hardware. The real invasion is happening in the mind. It is a silent revolution of soft power. Through Turkish schools, TV series, and construction projects, Ankara is rebuilding the cultural identity of the region. For a young Uzbek or Kazakh today, the model of a modern, strong state is no longer Russia. It is Turkey. Ankara has successfully positioned itself as the big brother that Moscow used to be, but without the colonial arrogance. Perhaps the most symbolic death of the Russian Empire is happening in the classroom. Kazakhstan is switching to the Latin alphabet. Uzbekistan has already done it. Why does this matter? Because script is identity. By dumping the Cyrillic alphabet, these nations are mentally divorcing Moscow. They are aligning their culture, their internet, and their education with Ankara and the West. Putin speaks Russian, but the grandchildren of Central Asia will read and write in a script he doesn't even understand. The mental empire is collapsing faster than the physical one. This shift isn't just on land, it's on the water. The Caspian Sea used to be a Russian lake. For 300 years, the Russian Navy ruled these waters unchallenged. Not anymore. The Central Asia Caucasus analyst reports that Turkey-backed Turkic states are effectively challenging Russia's hegemony here. Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan are building their own fleets powered by Turkish technology. This matters because the Caspian is the gateway for energy. If Russia loses control here, it loses control over the energy flow from Asia to Europe. We are seeing the construction of a new logistical reality. Turkmenistan and Azerbaijan are building ports that bypass Russia entirely. They are creating a Turk Lake. This is fatal for Putin because the Caspian is the only route for Central Asian energy to reach Europe without going through Russia or Iran. By losing control of the sea, Russia loses its ability to turn off the tap. The energy blackmail weapon is broken. Speaking of energy, we have to talk about the pipelines. For decades, the northern corridor through Russia was the main artery of trade between China and Europe. Sanctions killed it. Now the world is building the middle corridor. It goes through the Turkish states. It is faster, it is safer, and it is free from Russian blackmail. China is investing billions. The EU is investing billions. The world has decided that the future of trade does not include Russia. Kazakhstan specifically is driving the final nail in the coffin. Upstream Online confirms that Kazakhstan is boosting oil exports to China, bypassing the traditional Russian routes. For decades, Russia held Kazakhstan hostage by controlling its pipelines. Now Astana is saying no more. They are sending their oil east to China and west to Europe via Azerbaijan. This is an economic disaster for the Kremlin. They lose transit fees, they lose leverage, and they lose face. There is one physical piece of this puzzle that is arguably the most dangerous spot on Earth right now, the Zangezur corridor. For a century, Russia kept the Turkic world physically separated by drawing borders on a map. Now, Azerbaijan, backed by Turkey, is pushing to open this corridor. If Zangezur opens, a truck can travel from Istanbul to Shanghai without ever entering Russia or Iran. It is the umbilical cord of the Turkish superpower. Moscow is terrified. Iran is terrified. Because once that road is paved, Russia's influence in the south, Caucasus, evaporates overnight.